fiscal policy. So what is fiscal policy? Well, fiscal policy is a tool which um, which policymakers use, in which the policymakers, so let me write this, in the case of fiscal policy, the policymakers are trying to change either G, the government expenditure, or trying to change T, the tax sort of revenue, to change AD uh, of the economy. So what we say is that a fiscal policy, we're trying to basically change either government expenditure or change taxation to change AD. But before I talk about fiscal policy, I want to talk about Keynesian's view about AD. So what Keynesians believe, that AD is something that fluctuates too much. And they say the AD fluctuates because of what they called, an important word to remember. They said because of this irrational, let me write this, or let me underline this, there is an irrational sort of waves of pessimism and optimism. So for the economy has people who are sometimes pessimistic and sometimes they are optimistic, and when they are optimistic, of course AD will go up, and when they are pessimistic, AD will go down. But the problem is this, that this pessimism or optimism, according to Keynesian, is kind of irrational. Sometimes it's not a good reason why you need to be pessimistic. So coronavirus is happening. Do you think if people are pessimistic and they don't want to invest, is that a right reason or a wrong reason? Should they be pessimistic? Um, is it an irrational reason to be pessimistic or rational reason to be pessimistic? Is it rational? Is it, I mean, rational basically means it's logical or it is right to be. Yes, it is. I agree with you. It is a rational reason. But let's say suddenly um, people are just sort of irrational. So irrational sort of means that the reason why you are pessimistic or optimistic is really not strong enough. And if that's the case, the irrational way, I mean, corona is a rational reason, but let's say if there's an irrational wave of optimism and pessimism, then basically what happens is that Keynesians came up with this sort of term. They said there is something called your animal spirit, or basically bher chal, herd mentality. That kind of a herd mentality or animal spirit is such that when suddenly people are pessimistic, everyone starts to basically cut down expenditure, cut down consumption, and as a result of that, firms cut down investment, and suddenly the whole economy find the AD to go down. And when this AD falls, there will be a lower production and higher unemployment. So the argument that Keynesians were making, that like sometimes AD fluctuate too much because of irrational wave of pessimism and optimism, and that irrational wave of pessimism or optimism can affect not only AD, but that can affect your production and therefore cause your GDP to fall and therefore unemployment to rise. Similarly, if there's an irrational wave of optimism, that's also not good, because if there's too much of optimism out there, then that can actually fuel inflation. So too much of optimism is also bad, because if optimism is out there, your AD will go up, and if AD goes up, and let's say the economy doesn't have the spare capacity to meet the increased demand, then there could be a possibility of this higher AD translating into higher production, but also more inflation to be fueled. So Keynesians therefore said this, that because of this irrational wave of optimism and pessimism, this irrational wave or irrational sort of fluctuation, I should say, fluctuation in AD means that the government has to basically uh, stabilize AD. And therefore, what I wrote here in the notes is this, that the Keynesians were arguing this, that your government should actively stabilize AD to remove any deflationary or inflationary gap. And I want to explain this deflationary or inflationary gap in 1 minute. So guys, what if, let's draw this diagram. And I'm going to make vertical LRAS because it's easier to understand. If this is AD naught and AS naught, and this is YF, if you are here, so this is my real GDP and my price level, right? So if this is the case here, this is your P naught. Right now we are at full employment, right, guys? Uh, T is taxes, yes. And what if your AD falls because of irrational wave? If AD falls, then this is what we call, this AB is what we call deflationary gap. Remember, I talked about deflationary, and this YF to Y1 is your output gap. So because of this fall of AD, you are looking at A to B as your deflationary gap. And similarly, because of your, let's say, optimism, which is also sometimes irrational, you could have what we call A to C as your inflationary gap. So Keynesians are arguing this, that if there's a deflationary gap, the government needs to actively basically make a policy that can make the AD come back to AD naught. And similarly, if there's an inflationary gap, the government needs to do something to make this AD fall to fill this inflationary gap. So too much AD and too little AD, that is happening because of what we call governments, because of people's irrational sort of uh, optimism and pessimism can cause the output to go sometimes beyond full employment, let's say to Y2, or sometimes to be below. So this is my output gap. This is also my output gap, or sometimes to fall below and cause your deflationary gap. So what does the economy needs to do? Basically, the government, basically they say this, that government has to stabilize AD. So actively government should be actively stabilizing AD to remove any deflationary or inflationary gap. Anything that is making GDP to go up too much, or anything that can make the GDP to go down, that is basically irrational. The government basically needs to try to sort of, so irrational optimism could be, for example, suddenly use like a PTI government aa gayi hai, tabdili aa gayi hai, and let's say let's spend too much money. That would be what we call irrational optimism, because whatever tabdili that came isn't really positive tabdili to start off with. Or for example, let's say there's an irrational pessimism. Oh my God, PTI government has come to power. Imran Khan is so new. He doesn't know how to sort of run the government. Let's cut down AD. For example, if you're PMLN, you will have a irrational pessimism about this guy. So this could be irrationality causing the AD to be too high or too low. Now, guys, let's look at this tool. So if I want to make my AD go up, let's right here. If I want to make my AD go up, what do I need to do? Either I can make the government expenditure go up, or I can make the taxes to go down, right? We call this expansionary fiscal policy. Why? Because this is kind of making the AD to go up. Similarly, if I want to make the AD go down, I can make the G to go down or T to go up. If I make the G to go down or T to go up, government expenditure, remember AD is what? AD is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So if G is going down, AD is going down. Or if T is going up, then disposable income basically go down. So remember, disposable income goes down, and if disposable income goes down, then clearly consumption goes down. So that can also be an impact that can make the AD go down. So government can do, if they want to make the AD go up, they can basically have the expansionary fiscal policy to happen. Similarly, if the government wants the AD to go down, they can have what we call uh, deflationary fiscal policy, or sometimes contractionary fiscal policy. Does that make sense, guys? Contractionary or deflationary fiscal policy to happen. Are we good? You need to give me 1 minute. I need to sort of pause this for 1 minute. And so we looked at this. So guys, do we understand the fiscal policy? How fiscal policy work? Now there's one more important point that I want to talk about is that between G and T. So what is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy basically you are looking at fiscal policy to change G or T. Monetary policy, remember, Aman, only has one tool, which is through interest rate, right? Through interest rates, we're changing different we're changing AD. So what is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy has two tools, but which one is more powerful? And what the policy makers say that between G and T, G is basically more powerful than T. Okay, and I'm going to explain this point. Let's say government decides to increase their expenditure by 100. Okay, and let's assume that your MPC is zero point 0.8 and MPS is 0 0.2. If the government decides to increase government expenditure by 100, then this basically means AD will go up by 100, right? And if our multiplier is 5, then therefore GDP, the change in GDP will be 5 times 100, because that's the AD of 500, right? But let's look at taxation. Government said, okay, what if rather than increasing government expenditure by 100, let's reduce T by 100? Will they have the same effect or not? So या तो आप G को बढ़ा दो 100 से या T को गिरा दो by 100 से. Okay, and I'm looking at basically which one is more powerful. If you reduce T by 100, then we say this, that your disposable income will increase by 100. Isn't that true? If disposable income go up by 100, so there will be a change in Y of 100. And if disposable income increase by 100, and if your MPC is like 0.8 and MPS is 0.2, then consumption, there will be a change in consumption. Consumption will go up by 0.8 times 100, which means 80. But saving will go up by 0.2 times 100 or 20, which would mean ultimately when the taxes go down by 100, your consumption will rise by 80, and that would mean your AD will go up by not 100 but by 80. And if AD is going up by 80, then this would mean your change in GDP will be 80 times 5 if your multiplier is 5 or 400. So guys, are G and T equally powerful? And the answer is no. When G goes up by 100, goes up by 100, and therefore GDP go up by 500. Direct increase happen. But when your taxes go down by 100, there is what we call some effect on consumption, some effect on saving, and that's why GDP will go up by 400. So between G and T, and this is what I wrote here, increase in government spending or decrease in taxation can result in AD to shift and make the economy to come back to full employment. Between changing taxation and government spending, Keynesians favor raising government spending because they believe they will have a bigger multiplier effect. This will have a bigger multiplier effect because government expenditure Number one, directly affect people in terms of change in G will basically be equal to change in AD, and that basically means there will be a larger multiplier effect. Also, the fact that when you are changing government expenditure, you can actually give more money to the poor. Disposable income, if that changes, it only can affect those on income. But let's say if I increase government expenditure, they will you can actually make the poor to be the beneficiary, and we know this MPC of poor is always greater than MPC of rich, which would mean government expenditure on the poor will also have a larger effect on the economy. So between government spending and taxation, fiscal policy basically has a larger impact on your poor, because when you change taxation, you change disposable income. However, when you change your government expenditure, you are actually changing AD directly, number one. Number two, because it could be directed towards poor, it could have a larger effect. You're right, Aman. I've looked at a very simple example. Aman is asking me shouldn't be looking at three sector. The only problem with three sector is that थोड़ी सी math complicated हो जाती है. I'm just trying to make it simple, and that's why we use two sector math, not three sector math. But you're right. If I look at three sector math, I will probably going to have the same result. Okay. Now one more thing that I want to talk about today in our class, which is that when you look at fiscal policy, fiscal policy could be uh, a discretionary fiscal policy, or they could be what we call automatic stabilizer. Okay, so do two things: discretionary fiscal policy or automatic stabilizer. A discretionary fiscal policy is basically when the government, discretionary basically means at government's will. It's basically what we call a deliberate change in G or T to change AD. If there's a deliberate change in G or T to change AD, we say the government has done what we call a discretionary fiscal policy at their own discretion or their own will. They have changed G or T. They have changed G or T to change AD. But there could also be something called automatic stabilizer. In an automatic stabilizer, the government has two tools. A, they have what we call progressive taxation. So government uses progressive taxation. Second, the government uses unemployment benefits. And with the help of unemployment benefits and progressive taxation, the government automatically stabilize the economy. So let me tell you how does that work. The automatic stabilization through progressive taxation. So let's say AD fell. If AD falls, GDP will fall. If GDP falls, this means incomes are going down. If incomes are going down, guys, can I say this? That automatically, if you have unemployment benefits placed, because incomes are going down, GDP is going down, unemployment is going up. UE means unemployment is going up. This means unemployment benefits will go up. And this rise in unemployment benefits automatically means higher unemployment benefit would mean government expenditure go up, and that automatically means AD goes up, and the economy, let me write this, economy begins to recover. So we say the economy begins to recover when the AD was going down, because the unemployment benefits will automatically kick in, making government expenditure to go up and therefore AD to go up, and therefore economy to automatically recover. Similarly, if you look at this, guys, same case, AD was going down, GDP fell, and income starts to fall. If income starts to fall, now people are getting less income. Somebody who was earning 500 rupees is earning 100. Somebody who was earning 5 lakh rupees is probably earning 3 lakh rupees. So everyone is finding incomes to go down. And if progressive or if taxation is progressive, then one could argue this, that the tax rates will fall. If tax rates fall, so people who are getting 50% tax are now getting 40% tax, 40 people who are getting 40% tax are getting 30% tax, and so on. If tax rates are falling, then automatically this fall of tax rate means that the disposable income will go up. And when disposable income goes up, because tax rates are going down, automatically AD will go up and economy recovers. So basically what I'm trying to argue is that sometimes the government do not need to do what we call a deliberate effort. Sometimes they can do what we call automatic stabilizers, which are basically two tools: your progressive taxation and unemployment benefits. If you have progressive taxation and unemployment benefit, economy sometimes, in a case of falling AD, automatically recovers. So Aman is asking, isn't government spending meaning expenditure only on goods and services? Yes, Aman, I don't get it. It is expenditure on all the government spending, whatever they're spending on. And Ryan is asking, sir, but if in that case higher unemployment, better the situation is in the opposite of macroeconomic goal. So let me do both the cases again, guys. एडी गिर रहा था, जीडीपी गिर गया. एडी गिर रहा था, जीडीपी गिर गया. और जब जीडीपी गिरता है, when GDP goes down, incomes are going down and unemployment is going up. Now government can deliberately come and fix the economy, number one. But what if government doesn't deliberately come and fix the economy because they have, let's say, unemployment benefits and progressive taxation already put in place? As soon as you get unemployed, you will get unemployment benefits. So when unemployment go up because GDP was going down, people started receiving more unemployment benefit, which means automatically government spending is going up because unemployment benefits is government spending. G goes up, AD goes up, economy begins to recover. Similarly, AD गिर रहा था, GDP गिर रहा था, suddenly people find their incomes to go down, and if taxation is progressive, the tax rates will start to fall, which would mean people will suddenly have an improvement in their disposable income because the tax rates are going down, and therefore that big fall of income isn't going to be that painful, which means fall of GDP, fall of tax rate causes disposable income to rise, therefore AD to rise, and therefore economy to recover. So if you have two tools of unemployment benefits and progressive taxation, this can actually make your AD to recover automatically. And that's why they call automatic stabilizer. Automatic stabilizer, we say this, that they reduce the fluctuation of AD. They will make the AD fluctuation to shrink because they reduce that effect of uh, falling AD by cutting down on taxes and the rising of unemployment benefits. Does that make sense, guys? Which one is automatic stabilizer? Automatic stabilizer are both progressive taxation and unemployment benefits are called automatic stabilizers. So the government can either do what we call discretionary fiscal policy, which means they change GNT on their own, or they let the economy do it on their own by using progressive taxation and unemployment benefits. From this example, both of them are my friend, both of them are automatic stabilizer. Unemployment benefits as well as progressive tax rates are what we call automatic stabilizer. Isn't cutting tax rates in the progressive example a deliberate effort to? No, my friend, it's not, because you put these tax rates from before. Progressive taxes are put from before. So for example, they look like this. For example, if your salary is 50K, you pay 10% tax. If your salary is 100K, you pay 100K, you, for example, pay 20% tax. If your salary is 300K, you pay, let's say, 30% tax. If your salary is like 400K, you pay like 40% tax, and so on. So automatically, when the incomes have started to fall, the taxes bracket starts to fall. So it's not deliberate, it's put in place from before, You just put a tax rate from before. These slabs are already there from before. Correct? So that's what it is. So fiscal policy can be both um, deliberate, which is called discretionary fiscal policy. Sometimes the government could also have what we call automatic stabilizers, which are basically progressive taxation and unemployment benefits. Make sense? And so I can read this for note for you that discretionary fiscal policy is a deliberate government policy with regards to taxation and spending that aims to alter AD and real national income. So automatically, the government is basically trying to fix the economy. Now, automatic stabilizers are forms of government spending and taxation which change any without which change without any deliberate government action to offset the fluctuation. When the economy goes into a recession, let's read this. There is a reduction in the amount of taxes collected by the government automatically, as all taxes are tied to economic activity, because you are looking at progressive taxation. Also, tax rate fall is the tax system is progressive. So when the A taxes are falling because people's income is falling, B taxes are falling because taxes are progressive, which means as recession would lead to falling earnings, incomes, and profits, there would be a reduction in taxes. This automatic tax cut stimulates AD because automatically people are paying less taxes, so disposable income will go up and reduces the magnitude of economic fluctuation. Make sense? But a fall in taxation will reduce G. A fall in taxation may not reduce G. A fall in taxation may lead an economy to run into what we call a budget deficit. We can say it can lead to a budget deficit, but not necessarily government spending to go down. We say government spending on unemployment benefits may also uh, change because of automatic stabilizer. If the economy goes into a recession, workers are laid off, more unemployment benefits and income support is given, resulting in AD to rise. Ryan has a good point. Basically, where will the government get the money from? And the answer is maybe the government will get the money from IMF or World Bank or probably from their past savings to make that to happen. Does that make sense, guys? So they are therefore, if I could recap quickly, when you look at fiscal policy is basically changing G or T, and between G or T, what is more powerful is G than T. And secondly, we say this, that when you look at fiscal policy could be both discretionary and automatic stabilizers. Discretionary is when the government is consciously trying to change GOT, and automatic stabilizers is when the government is using progressive taxation and unemployment benefits. And that's how the government is trying to fix the AD. Okay, does that make sense, guys? I am done for today. That is it for today.